All right. Hey, good morning to everyone, all of our listeners, everyone within our sound of our voice. We're back at the Community Roundtable. I'm Brother Brian, and I got Brother Marcus here with me. And we got a special guest today, Attorney Kevin Johnson. He's come to the roundtable to sit down, break bread with us, not on a not on a literal sense, but on a figurative sense. He come to the roundtable to share information and do what we do best. We sit down and we EAT.
Yeah, EAT for us means evaluate all things. I'm going to say that again for those who might not have heard. EAT for us means evaluate all things.
Exactly right. Man, we got so much to chat about, so we're going to get right into it. Brother Marcus, we've always talked about justice in our community, but some people call it just us. And last week we spoke about the situation dealing with the young brother right down the street from us in Georgia. And the more I see and hear people as they give their narrative and also comments, because even matter of fact, after we finished the show last week, you hit me up saying that, hey, it's another video out. And the video was just showing that I guess the young brother was doing what most of us do when they see a house in a community that's being worked on. Because I know you work on houses, Brother Mark.
Yeah.
And the only thing the brother did was went into a home and just viewed, from what I saw, he just viewed the home. And later on, we found out that he was charged for being a burglar or committing the act of burglary and lost his life. And that's what I'm confused on. And that's why we brought in one of the best attorneys in Monroe, Kevin Johnson, in, because I didn't know that people can take the law in their own hands and just take a person's life for being accused of a crime. So, Brother Marmy, what's going on over there?
Oh man, I looked at that and said, wow, because like you said, when you build a new construction, people walk up on new construction all the time just to look in the window, just to go inside the dwelling, look around and see how the house is coming. I walk up on houses all the time just to do that particular thing that I just mentioned, the span the dwelling, to look around in it, and not knowing that they can consider you as trespassing or trying to commit burglary. That's crazy, because it's open viewing for the public for real, because they don't have most of the time they don't have any signs that say no trespass. Now you got to ask the question, did they have any signs up that say no trespass? They had additional footage showing that they had, like we do, we put deer cameras up sometimes to catch people going in and out of the dwelling to see if somebody taking anything. So I'm assuming they had that kind of camera because the person who owned the house released that video of him going in and out of that particular dwelling. But I'm thinking they released that video so they could justify what happened to Ahmad, so.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of people discuss. Well, Kevin, I saw you shaking your head about the trespassing that Brother Marcus just mentioned, and I don't know the law, didn't go to school, so we got to ask you about that, because when they said initially burglary, then I looked it up and I said burglary has to be something about you actually taking someone's possession without their permission, and then I said, well, if anything, he should be charged with trespassing. Then what Brother Marcus just mentioned, there are no signs saying no trespass, so help us clear that up. I don't know if you could speak to Georgia's law, but, if it was in Louisiana, what type of situation would we be in?
Well, I thought about it. As far as from what I've seen, I saw this video of the homeowner's house, and apparently he had a security system, but it was a motion-activated camera. And anytime anybody came onto the property, and apparently many people came on his property, every time somebody came on the property, the security company sent the video to him to his cell phone, and he could see it. And so as far as with Ahmad going onto the property, he got that video, but apparently he didn't look at it until probably maybe 20, 30 minutes after he got it. But by that time, Ahmad was dead. As far as to say somebody committed a trespass or burglary, the house is open. It's a structure being built. So there was no door or anything, or windows, anything, nothing to break into. So as far as even under our law, I thought of 3 crimes, well, really 4 crimes. 3 are felonies. We have simple burglary. You have simple burglary of an inhabited dwelling, unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling, and trespassing, which is a misdemeanor. Obviously, the inhabited dwelling parts of the unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling and simple burglary inhabited dwelling would not apply because the place wasn't inhabited. Nobody's living there. It's being built. So then simple burglary. There's nothing that showed on that video Ahmad breaking into it. He just walked from the outside part and stepped in, looked around. Even the homeowner, I saw an interview with him, said that Ahmad did not take anything. He was only there for maybe about 3 minutes, and then clearly showed he turned around and left. What I think is going on is that the district attorneys, the first two district attorneys, have twisted the facts and in essence have made a defense for the McMichael, Greg McMichael and his son. Because if they are saying that a burglary had been committed and then he was the suspect because they had a rash of break-ins, the homeowner said, how would McMichael know about my video footage being sent to me on my phone? He don't have access to that. So you see what I'm saying? Wow. He lied. McMichael lied from the start.
Yeah. He
couldn't have seen anything because that went straight to that man's phone. And so the way that the two DAs wrote it up, McMichael never mentioned nothing about a citizen's arrest when he got arrested and his son. He said self-defense. I'm about to cuss. How you gonna say self-defense? We do have in the law a justification defense, and that's what they trying to argue for defense of property. But ain't nobody living there. And the homeowner said that he never gave McMichael, he didn't even know him. He never gave him permission to look at his house. So how you defending his house? And there was nothing. And then going back and looking at this other video, I guess every black person look alike. Obviously, even though that was at nighttime, that other video, that was a light-skinned black guy.
Mm-hmm.
Ahmaud Arbery is brown.
Right.
You know, as far as a darker shade of brown. And then you got this clear footage showing, you know, that ain't the same guy. And the other guy didn't take anything either. And so then, you know, the homeowner put this other footage out showing all these people, white people, kids coming on his property, because every time they stepped foot into it, that camera was activated. He said nobody took anything. So it's like what y'all are talking about as far as people going just curious looking at a house being built. But what they are really doing, the first two DAs, they are wrong. They should have stepped out of it. They were, in essence, setting up a defense. And then these guys, lawyers, running with that now.
Oh, yeah.
When you see him on TV, he running with that. And, you know, so that boy did not commit any crime as far as trespassing. There was no sign out saying don't come on the property, anything. He didn't break any law.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I feel that he didn't break any law, they trying to justify the actual shooting, you know. And like I said, the DA and his cohorts is building a defense for these particular guys, the McMichaels or whatever. But I mean, that's what we have to come out and stand up against the injustices. But we can't do it in a manner where we at war with them. We got to do it from experienced lawyer side. So the lawyers got to get together and come up with a strategy to be able to push this forward where these guys can be convicted for the crimes that they committed, you know, and not just let them get a slap on the wrist at this particular point in this particular case.
Yeah, well, what I think is the politics from the last thing that I've seen, there's a fourth prosecutor on the case now. It's a black lady. She is the DA of Cobb County. It used to be Newt Gingrich country. I'm surprised it's a black lady. They're just the DA over, because that was Newt Gingrich country. I lived in Atlanta. But she's been appointed the special prosecutor. And she is going to take it to the grand jury from what the last thing I saw. Once they can get a grand jury and panel, they can't really do it right now because of the coronavirus stuff. You know, putting a bunch of people in a room together like that. But what also struck me, you had two prosecutors, and it's coming out that the lady that was the first prosecutor, McMichaels, the daddy, worked for her. Right. And come to find out, he lost his ability to even arrest people a year before this, last year. because he wasn't going to use of force training, firearms training. He was a cop and then an investigator, and he lost his he lost his ability to arrest people. That hadn't been really brought out much. But and then they had to let him go because what use is he for her? And then also the other thing was that the second DA, his son works for the first DA. And so they should have immediately just stepped out of this. They shouldn't have had any part of in this. But what they did was create a story. And they told the police to not arrest either one of them. And they just did. So from the start, they were trying to help both of them. And then by putting the second DA put in this letter he wrote to the AG's office asking for him to be recused, he put in there that they should not, there was no basis for arrest because they were making a citizen's arrest. Neither one of them ever said that when they got arrested. So that was the first thing he put in the letter. Then he said that there was a justification defense. They were the aggressors. That kills any kind of justification defense because they were the aggressors. That boy wasn't bothering nobody. They came up on him.
A citizen's arrest, that tells me that I think the person you're talking about is Barnhill that wrote that letter. And
right. He was the second DA.
Yeah, he pretty much laid out a strategy for people to follow. And, he declared a citizen's arrest as if he was going to guide them on what to say, how to say it, and run with this defense. However, if this information had not got out to the public and the media had not been asking for more information, they would have got away with it because they didn't get arrested or even questioned until it was out in the media. So that tells me what type of citizen are they talking about? Because there are sovereign citizens. There are many types of organizations that call themselves citizens, or they are part of a citizenship. So they're saying that, hey, we were not part of that. And so they took the law into their own hands. He guided them, and that person ended up, he was, you saw the video, he was trying to fight for his life.
Right.
I mean, these trucks running down the street after him, and he's nervous, pulling out shotguns. And now I'm saying, wow, are they actually defending the Second Amendment rights, or have they actually become the militia and now the judge and jury, and they end up giving the young man what they thought he should have received?
They became the militia. They ain't got nothing to do with the right to bear firearms. Again, we have in our law, it's in the Code of Criminal Procedure where a citizen can make a felony arrest, not a misdemeanor arrest. And apparently that's the same thing that Georgia has. But I would tell most people, don't get involved in that because you don't know all the details. You don't, I mean, why would you try to, it's an old song from back in the day. I can't say the whole thing. Captain Saver, y'all remember that, right?
That's right.
Why would you want to become that and you don't even know all the details and you're going to put yourself in possibly a dangerous position? For what? And it was just, he black and he in a white neighborhood. That's all it really boiled down to. And he must have done something. And then you got these trucks following this dude. And if I'm him, I wouldn't stop. Who are you? Who are you telling me to stop?
Yeah.
You're
just a black man in a white man's world at this time. I mean,
right?
Ain't nothing really never changed. We think it's changed, but it really haven't. I mean, it's on a small level if it did. And we got to understand that, and we can't just think automatically that things changed overnight. They gave us the ability to go vote. They gave us the ability to integrate schools and stuff of that nature. But that just happened 66 years ago. I mean, the civil rights movement gave us a lot of push forward, but we still like just up from slavery, and they still living under the slave code. So you kill a slave, we don't have to prosecute the slave master. Same thing still happening today. We just got to step forward and make our voices heard, and then we got to change some of these things. Electing these DAs that's biased because they elected DAs. They bias toward us anyway. Here we are in situations where, like in Louisiana, the prison population is 139,000 people. We make up 66% of the prison population in Louisiana. That's 91,000 people, man. That is crazy. But because we don't know and we don't understand, we're not looking at the numbers. We just saying, oh, yeah, man, it's a lot of crime in our area. They make us the face of crime. They make us the face of everything. So we got to stop them, stop allowing them to make us to face criminality or trespassing or breaking the entry, all of these things. And we got to have people that work for us. We hire a lawyer, he or she has to work for us. If we got senators or governors in place, they have to work for the people, not the people working for them, trying to figure their way outside of the different codes of conduct that they gonna set up against us.
I agree with you. I think, again, as far as if people were not protesting and raising hell about this, they would have got away with this. I'm serious. It's just, the first two DAs set it up within a few days of this boy being shot. And they both had dirty hands in the sense that they should have just stayed out of it. And the other thing that they did, too, by laying this out there, is some people that will still believe what they put out there as far as the second one in that letter. It would taint the jury pool, possibly. Somebody would believe that, and then, that would cause problems with trying to go to trial.
So what about this grand jury? What about the grand jury? Is it possible to find an impartial grand jury at this sector of what's been taking place? What has taken place?
Well, the thing is, I don't know exactly how they do their laws regarding the grand jury there. I'm gonna give you an example here. As far as with here, usually grand jury is picked twice a year. Now, bigger cities probably more often, like maybe New Orleans and Baton Rouge, but at least twice a year. And that particular grand jury will sit for 6 months, and then it's time to pick another one. So if they have something kind of like that in Georgia, then there may already be a grand jury in that county, that possibly was already impaneled before this.
Help me understand the process, because I've heard about the what's called the petty jury, which is the regular jury, then a grand jury. I'm confused on why would this have to even go to a grand jury, because I know many people that end up getting warrants put out for them, and as far as I understand, they don't have to go to the grand jury for that. So why would this have to go to a grand jury?
Well, usually with a murder case, as far as under our law, that has to be charged by grand jury. Like you have two ways. The district attorney has two ways to charge somebody with committing a crime. It's either by bill of information. I used to be a prosecutor. I could just sit at my desk after reading the report. If I thought that there was probable cause for me to go forward to trial against this person, I signed a piece of paper charging the person with such and such crime. I can just do that sitting at my desk. But grand jury, I'd done that a few times. I would have to go present it to the grand jury in the room, in the building where we were. And then after I present it to them, I have to leave out. I can't stay in there. And then they decide, and at least 9 out of the 12 have to vote for a true bill to charge somebody with committing the crime. Or the grand jury might say, Johnson, you presented this to us. We don't see it. We ain't going to charge them. So, but it's their decision. And so sometimes politics come into play on the thing like this.
And that's only for a homicide or for any?
Well, I could do grand jury in any kind of crime. I didn't just have to take it. But as far as under our law, certain crimes have to be because of the punishment from it. Like second-degree murder, first-degree murder carries life imprisonment. Aggravated rape, crimes like that, you have to present that to a grand jury under our law. I don't know how theirs is set up, but sometimes if it's not a crime that mandates it, the DA could just go to the grand jury in a way for politics. I don't want to make that decision, so I'm gonna go present it to the grand jury, and then I can come back to the camera and say, hey, the grand jury said this, in a way of politics to get away from me making a decision myself. I just use them as a scapegoat and put it off on them. This is what they decide. You see what I mean?
Yeah. And then the grand jury, sometimes the grand jury is tainted. We never know who the grand jury is. It's 12 members sitting in a smoke-filled room saying that, okay, Marcus, you guilty of possession with intent. I have the true bill indictment presented against myself, and they said that I sold 50 grams of crack cocaine at a barbershop, which I have never in my life sold. Cocaine to a person at a $50 rock at a barbershop. But they true billed me, came back with the indictment, arrested me, and ultimately charged me with possession with intent to distribute drugs and gave me an indictment that I say, man, this ain't none of me. I have to fight my way out the system to figure. And these people who sitting in this room found True Bill me, came back with the charge. I was like, man, this has got to be, somebody has to do something about this as well. This is crazy. Sometimes they don't have the know-with-all or the understanding of how the law works. They moving off their emotions and not understanding what the actual law is and how it's going to affect the particular person that they bringing this True Bill back on.
Well, what you were bringing up there, Marcus, is that, like, as far as the prosecutor going into the grand jury room and presenting this information to the grand jury, if they get a chance to ask questions of me if I'm presenting it, but it's all in how I present it. You see what I'm saying? Right. So if I present it in a way, now I ain't trying to say I got a bill against somebody. I don't want y'all thinking Johnson got, I'm just being straight up.
Yeah, it makes sense.
How I present it, to them. And, if some of them ask questions, because people ask me questions on the one that I presented, it was on the rape charge.
So is there a defense attorney in there?
No.
So it's one-sided.
Right. And even the defendant, he has a right.
He or she.
To be, he or she, excuse me for sounding sexist, he or she has a right to be present if they choose, but you got to really know when they're going to do it. See, it's some things that, as far as how a DA's office can operate, where they can kind of just hold back on some things, not saying that it's right, but that happens. And but you got a right to request to be present, but you can't ask, as far as the defendant, you can't ask them questions, yourself.
Can I contest the True Bill once they bring the True Bill back, the indictment? Can I contest that because I wasn't there? Why can't I contest it?
You can't contest that part because of the way the system has set up the grand jury. It's supposed to be secret. That's why, like after I present it, I can't stay in there. I got to walk out as the prosecutor and let them, make the decision on their own, whatever they're going to decide to do. Now, the way to contest it, one of the ways that you were kind of alluding to earlier, Marcus, I think y'all talked about this before, as far as the grand jury is comprised of people that's registered to vote. So, it's like the same thing as far as getting a quorum together when you picking a regular jury trial, and you got a bunch of people that come in that have been selected in that way, from people that's registered to vote. Grand jury comes from that same pool. So there's a guy I'm helping right now where he wants to challenge the grand jury from back when he was indicted in 2003. This is a guy because I think you had told him to get in touch with me.
Yes, sir.
And so with him, I don't know how successful we're going to be on that, but that guy, he's going to wind up having an opening because of what the United States Supreme Court just ruled about a week or two. Right. But the point is, one way to challenge the grand jury indictment is by the grand jury itself, as far as how would they select it? Did it come from a fair cross-section of the community? And that's the other way that we are affected as Black people with the system. Because that's what you were just talking about earlier, as far as with the number of people incarcerated. See, Black people as us, we don't realize that when you got all these people that come to get these felony convictions, they can't vote. And so if you can't vote, then you can't even be picked for jury duty.
That's right.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to stop you right there, but I'm a citizen of Monroe, Louisiana, registered to vote. I've never been sequestered to a grand jury indictment. Why? I've never been invited to sit in those kind of situations. I've never been selected for a jury panel or nothing. So I mean, what's the situation with that? When 12 people, when a jury of your peers supposed to be sitting in front of you, a jury of my peers would be people that's come from my community, Black, people from age 25 to 40 to 50. You see what I'm saying? So that's not a jury of my peers when 12 white people are selected and they sitting in the jury pit and they find me guilty of a crime that this prosecutor like Jerry Jones or somebody of that nature, who was the prosecutor at the time in the city, will present a case and then find us guilty on these particular charges that they falsely put against us, and then here we go on to prison for 20 to 30 years.
Well, I guess the best way I could answer that is it still goes back to the selection process as far as all the people in Ouachita Parish. In essence, Black people are the minority in the numbers as far as registered voters. The white people outnumber us on that. And then with the computer selecting, however the algorithm is set up as far as the random selection of the names, you know, that goes to what you're talking about as far as how that's done. What would have to happen on this, I was just talking with somebody a few weeks ago about, y'all remember, when it still goes on, a lot of Black people getting pulled over for like traffic matters and stuff over on the south side of Monroe. See them get pulled. Basically, yeah, but like on Highway 165, you know, like between Williamsboro Road and I-20, in the morning, you can see cops out there just pulling people over left and right, right? Well, the thing is that when you got a situation like that, or even like what you talked about, it would have to be almost like a class action put together to dig into it more to see whether or not this system is skewed more towards selecting white people than not. It's almost like a civil rights discrimination type thing as far as the impact of the selection system excluding Black people. But it would take something like that, a suit to challenge the system itself of how the selection is done, you know, to say whether or not it's discriminating against Black people because it's not selecting fairly across a cross section of the community to have more Black people involved in the jury system. You get what I mean?
Yes, sir.
You know, so that it would have to challenge that. But, you know, I don't mind doing stuff like that. I just don't have the money to do it, you know. Yeah. And so, you know, but if people would come forward, and if enough of them come forward, hey, let's try it.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing is, but people got to come forward and be wanting to, you know, want to participate in that and be willing to say, I'll be a plaintiff. And then get a class together, then, yeah, you can shine a light to that. But if it's just one person trying to do it, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Hey, I just want to try to not clear it up, but because the way I don't think as sharp as you and Brother Marcus, but I'm trying to understand this grand jury. You mentioned something about 9 out of 12 have to agree. Now, what about, I know in the state of Louisiana, we just voted on something dealing with the jury pool where it has to be unanimous.
Yes.
What was that all about?
Man, that's been in place since slavery ended. And somewhere around about like 1890s or whatever, that system has been in place. That made it easier to get a conviction. Like when I was a prosecutor, the way the system was set up was that if on most felony charges, if I could get at least 10 people, convince at least 10 people out of 12 to find a guilt on against this particular person, then they were going to be convicted. But Louisiana and Oregon were the only states still doing that. Every other state is just like federal court. It's got to be 12 out of 12, you know, unanimous verdict.
Oh, so Louisiana, it had to be 12 out of 12.
No, every other state besides Louisiana and Oregon has to be 12 out of 12. And that's the way it's set up in federal court.
Oh, to find them guilty.
Right. But see, the system was slanted towards DAs getting convictions. If you can get 10 out of 12, and then like what Marcus is talking about as far as with the selection, if you got more white people coming on, you see it right there. It's just right there. It's clear. You're going to get more convictions, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so the thing is now, they like Anderson Cooper say, they're keeping them honest now. It's got to be 12 out of 12. So it's a lot of DAs that have gotten, can't use the words, irritated by this, because now it ain't so easy for them to get a conviction against somebody, and therefore they might be a little bit more hesitant to go on a trial, take somebody to trial on the case, because they might not be able to get their conviction like they wanted to before. And when I was a prosecutor, like say for instance somebody's charged with attempted murder, and then you got what we call responsive verdicts, which in my opinion is set up for the DAs too. That if you can't get a conviction on the attempted murder, then the next responsive charge is attempted manslaughter, next responsive charge is aggravated battery, and then not guilty. They still gonna win as far as from the DA's perspective, because they're gonna be able to get a conviction one way or the other. A lot of people don't understand about the responsive verdicts. And so, but the thing is, as far as an I was prosecutor, a responsive verdict was considered to be a loss. You know, you got to get the conviction as charged, what you went to trial on. Yeah. But they still would win. And that responsive verdict thing is something, to me, we need to look at that. But, you know, the legislature, I think with the criminal justice reform, we got a lot of stuff changed with the drug laws. The governor, you know, got this stuff passed. Like now, the most somebody could be exposed to and it's based on weight now. Right. It's not just based on speculation about how much this is, and that's not what personal use. That's what a drug dealer would have, you know, that kind of thing. Yes, so I talk too much. Y'all gotta tell me.
No. I mean, it's a lot of great information. I know, Brother Mark, you got something, but give me a second. Hey, we're talking to attorney Kevin Johnson. As you're following us and listening to us, he has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. He's well-rounded. He was on the prosecutor side. Now he's a defense attorney and also a community activist. His father sat on the city council, and now he's a fighter for the community also. And as you're listening, you hear this man is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he's shedding so much information, and he's a fighter for the people. Well, go ahead, Brother Mark. I know you got something.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about it, man. I mean, like you say, Brother Kevin is a activist, a proven leader in the community or whatever. We have to look toward these individuals to find out the information. And Kevin said he was on the prosecutor side as well as a practicing attorney.
Private practice, that's right.
Yeah, doing legal defense. So I mean, and I was in the airport, right? And I was on my way back to Monroe.
Your private plane?
I wasn't no private plane. You know what?
Oh, my bad.
But you know, I was coming back home, right? And I happened to be sitting in the section waiting on my flight to get ready to board the plane. And in comes the ex-prosecuting DA from Monroe, Louisiana, Jerry Jones. He was coming from someplace he had a back surgery or whatever. And I'm sitting down and I see this guy just looking at me. So I look over, he done lost a lot of weight. And he look over at me. Kept looking at me. I looked and he say, "You look familiar." I say, "You look familiar too." He say, "Yeah." He say, "Jerry Jones." And then he say, "You look real familiar." Then he said again, he say, "Marcus Baker, AKA Bookie," right? And then I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Oh man, I ain't seen you in a long time." I said, "Yeah, you know," but a long story short, he said, he started talking to me about all the different cases that he had prosecuted and everything. And he said one case stood out to him the most. And he offered this guy a plea deal, Andre Johnson. He said, "Man, if I can help this guy in any kind of way, I would." Andre Johnson got convicted under the 10-2. You know, he got convicted under the 10-2. But Jerry said, Hold
on. 10-2. What is that?
The 10-2. That law that they just changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The law that they just changed, and now they wanted 12. They want to be unanimous. This guy has a chance. He's been in that goal of 25 years. Jerry said to me out of his mouth, he said, "Man, if you can contact Andre or if somebody know Andre, tell him I will help him at any cost." He said, "I regret prosecuting his case. He was come out of the army, had shot a guy in self-defense. He thought, or whatever the case may be." Jerry said he offered him 15 years, but his attorney at that time didn't present the plea deal to him. So he took it to trial.
That's illegal right there.
Yeah, he took it to trial. And he lost. And they gave him a life sentence. But this guy been languishing in jail because of this situation. He's trying to right now contact Jerry Jones. Nobody act like they don't know where he at. You know, but Jerry told me out of his mouth to tell this guy. As soon as I got to the city after getting off the plane, I went straight to a friend of mine that knows Andre, that goes to prison to see him, and he contacted him, told him what Jerry said, and nobody act like they can't find the gentleman nowhere. But because of these things, these issues that's been in Louisiana, the prison population has exploded, and we make up 66% of the prison population in Louisiana, which is unheard of. We make up 32% of the population of Louisiana, 4,600,000 people in Louisiana. We make up 32% of that, and we make up 66% of the prison population. This is crazy. But because we don't have anybody like Kevin Johnson talking to us, giving us a real understanding of what the jury system is made up of, how we get convicted for these different crimes. All this dude giving us a wealth of information. This brother giving us a wealth of information, but we scared to go get the information. He said he was giving this kind of information out at library, but we don't even want to go talk to the brother or get legal advice from individuals like himself. Man, this is crazy. So we got to look at that, man, and really just, take a real comprehensive look at what's going on and try to get with brothers like Kevin and make something different happen in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Just to touch on what you're talking about, how he serves the community dealing with. We just talked about that. Kevin looks at him going to the library, giving free legal advice as economic development. And that blew me away. I never heard of it like that. And he believes that, say if a person has charges or they're confused, they can't afford an attorney, it can give them some information to guide them, because ultimately the end result is to get them becoming tax-paying citizens, get them to the stages of becoming able to vote again. And it makes sense. It's just like in the business community. If you recirculate $1 in the community, it builds up the entire community. However, one of those people in that community, if they can't participate in some shape or form, it hurts the community as a whole. So he's trying to get everybody to become a player in the community, and he does what he does best, and his profession is through law. And he sets up at the library. Well, he was setting up at the library prior to the shutdown. And so now I know he and we sat at the table. We're discussing about bringing something called expungement workshop to reach out to the people, what we're doing now through video, give them information. Then they can set up an appointment one-on-one, and he can give more detailed information. I think that's how we're going to run with that. And Kevin, you mentioned about the economic. I'm sorry. Let me ask another question. Getting back to this situation in Georgia dealing with Ahmaud Arbery. Mm-hmm. He was, as I said earlier, fighting for his life, getting out of these people way. And I was just thinking of myself, because the national narration was that, well, why didn't Ahmaud just stop and talk to the people or submit or comply? And I'm like, the human mind is fight or flight when you come in a dangerous situation. Right. What says that anyone has the right to stop me? And in my mind, I know for a fact I hadn't done anything. And then these individuals block me from proceeding forward with shotguns. Now I become in a stage of fight and flight. I'm going to fight for my life. Get out of their way. If they point a gun, only thing I'm thinking about is these big barrels looking me down. These people not smiling. They don't have just casual conversation. So they meant him no harm. So, I mean, where do people get this narration that why didn't you comply? Why didn't he stop and talk to the people, explain what's going on? That's that negative old slave mentality, slave master mentality.
To me, that's more along the lines because he was black that, people saying, why didn't he just stop and comply? Everybody in this country has a Fourth Amendment right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. And seizure in the sense of stopping your movement from wherever you were going. The police can, if you're in a public place and they have their uniforms on or identify themselves as police, they can stop you, but it's just, eventually, unless there's a reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime or about to commit a crime or something of that nature, they got to let you go at some point until it turns into possibly something else. This guy, he's jogging on the road because it showed him before they even clearly got up to him. This dude was striding. He was running, but not running like he running from somebody. He's in a stride of jogging, running, exercise. So to say that, you come up to him and he has to stop, he had a Fourth Amendment right under this Constitution. When they talk about Second Amendment rights, he had a Fourth Amendment right. He didn't have to stop. Yeah. He didn't have to stop. And then if he don't know these people, they didn't identify themselves as policemen or have anything on. Because from what I remember seeing with the video, the son had on like a regular old T-shirt. The daddy in the back of the truck got like a T-shirt on or something. And he probably figuring, who are these white boys coming up on me? you know, and then, you know, then the son got the shotgun out pointing at him. Now,
and coming towards him.
Right. So, you know, he don't know. And then, you know, then the son is not a cop. The daddy was a cop. And, you know, as far as from what I found with him, he lost his right to be able to arrest anybody because he wasn't even, he didn't keep up his post certification. All cops have to go through that. There's something in every state to, just like I got to have 12 and a half hours of CLE credit every year to keep my law license active. You know, cops have to go through this training every year to keep their certification up. He lost that in June of last year. So that's why he lost his job, the DA's office. He couldn't arrest anybody. So here he come, he lost that. And apparently for years he wasn't keeping up with his stuff. And then this guy coming up on this young man. So now he didn't have to stop. So it's almost like, you know, by saying it in that way, they throwing it on him like it's his fault that he died. It ain't his fault. It ain't his fault.
Yeah. And you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because I had some similar encounter, and I didn't understand. A lot of us just don't understand our constitutional rights. We don't know nothing about the Fourth Amendment. We're not studying these concepts. We haven't been to law school. So the Fourth Amendment right, illegal search and seizure, I don't know anything about it. Even our Miranda rights, we don't know anything about. They say you got the right to remain silent. Anything that you say and can and will be used against you. So the dude automatically start talking, giving up information, whatever the case may be. Then they use this against us. Like, again, I got stopped in an airport by 2 undercover police officers. I didn't have to stop for them, but I stopped and they gave them the legal right. Gave them the right to search me because I stopped and complied with some conversation with them. But had I known my constitutional right at that time, I was a 19-year-old, 22-year-old kid trying to be a drug dealer. You know, got stopped, let them assume to question me and all of that, and I fell victim to not understanding or not knowing my constitutional right, which ultimately cost me to do 10 or 15 years, maybe almost 15 years in prison, you know. But I mean, I was doing something illegal, but I ain't have to stop. That's my thing. I didn't have to stop, and I didn't know my constitutional right. And a lot of people don't study the Constitution. We don't know anything about that, man. So,
well, the sad part, I just have to add to what you're saying. There's a lot of people I deal with this every day with what I do, in the sense that people, because they don't understand their rights, then they just see the police or somebody tells them to stop, they just submit. It's just like it's an automatic thing, a programmed response. They just submit.
We've been conditioned.
Right. And then, you know, the thing regarding the Fifth Amendment, man, I had so many people I represent, you know, that they just started talking like they could talk their way out of the situation. I'm saying everything that you say, the DA finna come back and use all that against you at trial. And
So
I won't be able to get it thrown out with a motion.
So what's the
suppress.
Fifth Amendment?
The Fifth Amendment is regarding, in essence, it's a privilege against self-incrimination. You don't have to be a witness against yourself, in essence, as far as a crime. You know, because your words, if you say something that's incriminating, in essence, you become a witness against your own self. And the DA is going to use that against you at trial. Man, it's hard. I can't use the language, but it's rare to get that stuff thrown out.
But the police act very, at that time, they act very friendly and they say, hey, just tell me what's going on and I'm going to help you.
Right. But see, that's the thing. There's also another provision in the law related to, in essence, due process that the police cannot get any kind of confession or inculpatory statement against you under threat or fear or duress or coercion. You know, like beating you up or taking it from you from force. You know, and they have to be
that don't happen
at the trial. Oh man, they don't necessarily do the beating up no more, but you know, the Supreme Court has said the cops can even lie to you, and then if they lie to you and you tell them something, they still can use that at court.
Yeah, they call that a pretext.
Well, it's several pretexts in the law that have lost because of one of them in particular, Scalia did in 1991 that you know, as far as being pulled over while being black, that there is no pretext. You know, now we know that happens every day. But Scalia said in 1991, a case I read in law school, and they still follow it to this day, that there is no such thing as a pretextual stop because you're black driving the car. And that's just not true. But see, all of that stuff helps the prosecutors be able to, and I'm just saying, when I did the job for 8 years, I used to always, when I would read the reports and stuff, I'd be like, man, they just gave me this case. I ain't talking about the police. I'm talking about the person that I charged. But really, it goes back to what Marcus and y'all are talking about. A lot of people just don't understand that right. I tell people now, you get pulled over, just shut up. You know, because the cop gonna arrest you, he gonna arrest you. Don't help him help to prosecute you. Shut up. Don't give them nothing to use against you. If they stop you, people don't understand about the different things. Normally, they're supposed to have a search warrant to search your car under the Fourth Amendment, but there are exceptions to that the Supreme Court has established. But most people I see, go ahead, ain't nothing in there, and they let them go in, and then I be damn, something in the car, and you gave it to them, and then I can't get that thrown out because you let them go in. You see what I'm saying? I can't file a motion to suppress to get that thrown out as far as when they can't use it at trial. See, that's the kind of stuff. It's like if you have a lawyer, if you haven't done anything to hurt your own case, the lawyer might be able to do something to fight. But if you gave him a whole lot of stuff, what is there for the lawyer to fight? You took it from the lawyer. I mean, that might not sound
no, it makes sense,
right with what I'm saying, but I'm just telling you that's the truth. You know, I believe in fighting, but a lot of my own clients, they kill themselves.
Oh yeah.
You know, they take it from me for to help them. So if there was anything, I would tell people, if you can, you don't have to be a legal scholar, but if you just get a basic understanding of the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and then a basic understanding of your rights as far as due process, that from the 14th Amendment came out after the Civil War was over. One of the main things that was supposed to help black people on the Reconstruction, when those came into being, the due process. I explain that to people when I go to trial, and I tell them, hey, you better make sure, because the Supreme Court said the district attorney has to prove every element of that charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. That's your right under due process of the law. They said that in 1970 in Ray Winship. And I always tell people, you better hold the DA to his job. He better prove each and every element of that charge. If not, you better let this man go. See what I'm saying?
Yes,
I got to read, but it's stuff there that people can get a basic understanding there. But it's like, for whatever reason with the police, it's just like we feel like we just got to comply, just automatically. And that's wrong.
Yeah, we got a fear factor. We fearful. I mean, we feel because the whip been beating on us for a long time. So we still think we feeling the whip. So, I mean, when the whip come off, now you got a process, you got due process, or you got a new understanding of what law is. Now you become, you got a voice. You can stand up. You become an activist, as they say. They label you a rebel. You know what I mean? But in actuality, you got these laws in place for people, for the people. He said, we one citizen, we sovereign citizens, we represent the United States of America, but you give the so-called black man in America so much grief, so much pain, so much, I mean, sorrow. You put us through a living hell, if you would say that, a living situation where we can't even function in this society in its rightful manner. It's supposed to have liberty and happiness and freedom and justice. Man, this is not happening for us, but we got to stand up and keep focusing on what's going on and keep teaching our youth what the law represents, how they can change their lives if they change their condition. We shouldn't have to fight for brothers getting out of prison. We make up this, I mean, large percentage of the population in prison. We shouldn't have to be in prison at this alarming rate. 91,000 people. And we the largest prison population in the United States. Louisiana and I think Oklahoma is trying to run us out of the race and make us second. But at this point, we the largest prison population in the United States, and America has the largest prison population in the world. So we got to combat this by any means necessary, and not necessary to tote no gun. We got to beat them with what we know.
I would agree with you on that, and I would say as well that regarding the, to me, I would say a big part of, I don't have anything numbers in front of me to correlate what you just said about the 91,000 or 100 and some thousand, but I would bet a big number of those people that are in jail are in there for drug stuff.
Oh yeah,
and like I say it all the time. The war on drugs is lost, been lost. But, you know, as far as to keep on putting people in jail, and then the way the system is set up, you know, as far as the DA always has the threat of the habitual offender. They use that every day. And so
what is that?
Well, that's where, say, for instance, if somebody has at least one felony conviction, that's all it takes is just one. Then the district attorney has been on the book since 1966. In the Code of Criminal Procedure, the district attorney has the ability to come back and charge that person as a habitual offender. If that person pleads guilty, people don't even realize that if you just take a guilty plea, the DA, unless your lawyer gets it put on the record that the DA is not going to come back and charge you, the DA can come back and charge you as a habitual offender off a guilty plea or after a trial on the current charge. If they get a conviction, even if it's a responsive verdict, conviction, charge you as a habitual offender. And see, we have things set up in the system. Certain charges, you're eligible for regular parole. And then certain charges, you're regular for good time parole. There's a difference between the two. But those are things where you can try to get an early release. It's up to the Department of Corrections to say when. You know, it depends on what type of crime. Some crimes you can't get early release if it's a crime of violence or a sex offense. But the habitual offender, if the DA comes back and charges you with that, then it exposes you to day-for-day time for a very significant amount of time. Just depends on the charge too. And so when I never charged anybody with that when I was at the DA's office. I never did that to anybody. I just, to me, if you got whatever that I was dealing with you on, why would I come back and do that to you? I wouldn't do that to nobody.
Yeah,
but it does happen.
Okay. Huh? Yeah, Mr. Ruddick uses a lot over there in the Washington Parish.
Yeah, he's retired now, but I was gonna say, yeah, it happens a lot, man. And the thing about it, there's a black legislator. This would have been, I remember reading about it in the paper. This would have been like last fall or somewhere towards the end of last summer, where he was putting together a bill to come back and make it where the DA doesn't have all that discretion on using it, that they can only use it if it was like the crime that you are charged with is like a crime of violence or a sex offense, something like that. And then, you know, you got a prior for something like that, then they can use it. But it's so open-ended, they can use it for anything.
Because they're using it now on a lot of drug offenses. And you got brothers that's got drug offenses, got life sentences that's currently in Angola and in Wade Correctional and all of that, because they use the habitual offenders law. You know, like my partner, I got a case that's sitting that I was going to write a book on. Zimmerman, out for 11th Street. He got charged with habitual offender for a drug possession, man. Possession of drugs. They gave this man a life sentence. This is crazy. They offered him 20 or 30 years. He didn't take it. So they took him to trial and gave him a life sentence for habitual offender for having 3 different cases of drug cases. But I mean, this is, abuse of authority in a sense.
It's abuse of authority, but the scary thing about that habitual offender thing is, to me, that's like you being God. You making a decision about somebody's life. You deciding what's going to happen to this person. And to me, that's too much of power for the DA to have. That's too much. The DA already has a whole lot of power, more power than the judge. People don't realize that, or more power than the sheriff or the any kind of police department. He's the most powerful person in his area, whatever he's covering, his parish or parish. Yeah. And he makes, and instead of him making that decision on his own, he's giving that authority to his assistants.
Wow,
that's too much power, man.
Yeah, I mentioned the guy named off 11th Street was Zimmerman. His name's Ziegler, Mr. Ziegler. But I mean, again, the Jerry Joneses, the DAs that came up that was in that stead for 20 some odd years. and prosecuting all these cases in Louisiana, especially out of Monroe. I mean, sending these guys to prison for 20 and 30 years, young guys, 20 years old. I went to prison 20 years old, came out 32. I mean, 22, came out 32, 10 years for drug possession and intent to distribute. But I mean, yeah, I was doing something wrong, but sometimes the time don't fit the crime. And that's in a lot of cases with the DAs, they put forth all these, they put us in these situations where we have to accept 15 and 20 years because they got the law in front of them and say, well, I can give you a life sentence.
So the basis of this is what that is about injustice of the criminal justice system, or we should be in a position where we follow the so-called law to a T.
Well, I would say as far as this injustice with the criminal justice system, we had a breakthrough with this criminal justice reform with Governor Edwards that came into effect in November of 17. And like I say, it reduced the maximums on a lot of these drug crimes. Like say, for instance, for if somebody had possession of cocaine with intent or distribution of cocaine, no less than 2.5 up to 20 years in jail. If somebody had possession of marijuana with intent to distribute or distribution of marijuana, they was looking at no less than 5 and up to 30 years in jail. If, that's crazy, for the sense of, that long for that. If you had a second offense marijuana possession, you were looking at up to 2 years in prison for just possession of marijuana, not even selling dope. And so by changing that and lowering that and making it, that's one step in the process. That's a good step. But the other part to me is if we could eventually get that power, that threat, that would balance the scales, in my opinion, as far as giving us or a person that's a defendant a little bit more equitable. Like you still got to deal with whatever, like if they can say or prove that you did this or not. Okay, that's one thing. That's going to trial. But taking that threat away, because basically what they're doing is, as far as using a street term, they punking people out of going to trial. If by putting that threat there, if you make me go to trial, then if you make me work, I'm gonna get you. I'm on the back end. Is that justice? No, because Thurgood Marshall, I read in this like cases I push on. I try to push on what's called Brady versus Maryland information. It's information and that's based on due process. That he was talking about with that case in particular, that the prosecutor is not supposed to just be about getting a conviction. Prosecutor is supposed to be about justice. But man, we all know that does not happen. Now, that all the time. So my point is that instead of just trying to get your convictions up or your rate up or you being tough on crime and all that, you got all that power. Use it in a way that, to make the system more equitable. Because it's really, as far as when you go into the courtrooms, yeah, you see some white people up in there, but the majority of people that's in the courtrooms as far as criminal court is black.
Right.
And it's poor white people. But, so the thing is that take that threat away, I think it'll start to balance a little bit more.
And then go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
No, and then plus, it costs 17. They give an inmate $17,000 some odd dollars a year to house them. That's money. If I made $12,000 or $15,000, $16,000 a year on the street, I wouldn't commit crimes. The average person is making $10,000 to $12,000 a year, $10 an hour, 40 hours a week. He make $400 a week. So I mean, you housing, the taxpayers paying getting the burden, because we paying all these dollars toward these institutions. They give them $350 million a year just to house inmates in the state of Louisiana. And more, they make more money on the back end with the telephones, the visitation. They got food commissaries in institutions where you get a 10-piece chicken for $30, So I mean, it's a whole lot of things going on, a whole lot of different dynamics. And my thing is, why didn't anybody question or run against DA Jerry Jones when he was in that capacity for over 20 some odd years? And a lot of the lawyers in the city say, no, I can't run against him. Why was that?
Well, I would say that he built up a consensus from what I saw, built up a consensus law enforcement people like them, you know, as far as the different agencies. But as far as lawyers running against them, I say the deck is stacked, and I ain't trying to sound negative. Don't get mad if I'm saying. I'm going to explain what I'm saying. I think the deck is stacked as far as a black person running, because the 4th JDC, District Attorney's Office, is made up of Ouachita Parish and Morehouse Parish. The white people outnumber black people as far as in the aggregate of those of Ouachita Parish, the number of registered voters, and then in the aggregate as far as with Morehouse Parish. So, you know, as a black person running, you got to convince, to run for DA, you have to convince white people to vote for you. And I'm just saying, I'm just being straight up.
Yeah.
That I don't know how that would happen. Now, I'm saying as far as a black person running for the job. Now, as far as white people, there's a guy that I used to work with at the DA's office that's running against Steve too right now, dude named Menon Campbell. You know, I don't know what that's going to be, you know, as far as with that, if he wins or not, you know, but the thing is that I think the day of possibly having somebody be in there as long as Mr. Jones was, because he was there for from like 1991 up until 2017. So how many years is that? That's 26 years, huh?
Yes, sir.
I don't think the days of that, I think that's over. I don't think that's going to go on anymore. And then the other thing, DAs don't have an age limit. You know, like judges have an age limit. By the time they turn 70, they can't run for judge again. There is no age limit for DAs. And the other thing, DAs have a very, very, very powerful lobbying group. Very powerful. They're very active in Baton Rouge. They get bills passed. Like, say, for instance, the black legislator I told you about that was trying to do that bill on limiting the habitual offender power. Oh, they got his thing kept in committee. It didn't get out of committee. But I was telling you what it was going to do. And that could have been very helpful to a lot of people. But they got it kept in committee. And who knows if it ever get out. You know, that's the thing as far as the numbers that we have, even in the legislature, the Republicans control it now. You know, they got the numbers. And so they don't fund the system right. You know, people talk about public defenders. Guess how public defenders get their money? Through traffic tickets, people paying those. That's how they got that set up. That's why they don't have money to hire people that's got ability in the sense of, you know, like maybe has jury trial experience in the sense, you know, or things of that nature, because they can't afford to pay them.
So I'm getting a court-appointed lawyer that's getting paid off a traffic ticket. So I got a murder case going on. He's getting paid $2,000 or $3,000 to represent me, and he feel like he ain't gonna represent me and up to his capability because he feel like he ain't getting paid for it. So he ain't gonna push forward for me. He gonna cop me a plea.
But see, the system, if they would fund it better, like in federal court, the federal public defenders that they have, those people make just as much as the prosecutor, but they don't have it set up to fund it right. You know, you would probably get more experienced people that would take, you know, doing the public defender job versus, you know, the way it's set up now. But they did that on purpose. They have not set it up to fund it adequately. You know, hey, what you talking about? The tickets, that's all you're going to get. That's enough. We ain't finna give you no more money.
And also they get a portion of it. They don't get the full amount.
No, they don't get the full amount. It's just a portion. That's correct.
It's a portion. I think it's broken down to 4 parts or something.
Well, like I'm gonna tell you, on a basic traffic ticket, like how they say on the street, everybody got to eat. A basic traffic ticket is broken up where the public defender gets a percentage, the clerk of court gets a percentage, the DA get a percentage, the sheriff get a percentage, and the criminal court fund gets a percentage. So everybody out there one ticket, you got 5 entities that's eating off that.
Right.
So the tickets
that's the
are
same
down.
Thing on the bail bond side. Every time someone is arrested, the jail fees is broken down like 4 or 5 parts also. So I think on our next interview, we need to attack the system as a whole. We've been attacking it as an individual, but the more I'm hearing, we have to attack it, get a better understanding of the system, because the system is designed to arrest, process, then convict. We have to look at that entire system and break it down, because the system is being funded by the ones that have been convicted, the person that is being convicted, their family members is supporting it, whether they're in or out. Because as you mentioned, Brother Marcus, if they go in, most of those individuals has to have someone to put money on the books.
Right.
Yeah.
And so through that system, that's what we need to attack and break down. Because a lot of people don't understand, or we become intentionally blind to the system as a whole, and thinking that we stop attacking the system, we attack the individual. And that's the wrong way to go about it. We have to definitely attack the system as a whole, because until the system is dismantled, this will continue on, because we start attacking each other individually, and that's not the way to go.
Oh yeah,
That's not the way to go. But that's like with the phones that Marcus is talking about. The public, I'm trying to think of the exact name of it right now. It's a regulatory commission. People are appointed as commissioners, and I can't think the name of it now. We get off, I'll remember the name. But there was a guy, Foster Campbell, who was running for governor a few years back, and he's on that regulatory commission, and he was complaining about that with the phones. The regulatory commissioner said that's okay when like the sheriff here in Washington Parish or other places, when they started doing that, charging this a huge amount for using the phone, so the access and all that. When you got the regulatory commission saying that you can do that, then yeah, they can do that. But you got the oh man, wow, I'm getting old now, my man. Come on now, I can't remember something.
Yeah, wiser.
But the thing is that you got different groups that say that that's wrong. Yes, it's wrong. You got somebody in jail that can't even talk to their family member because they don't have the money to talk. Or like what Mark's talking about, like with the food. That's there. But when you got it, it's just different things. That's here in the law here. There's some here in the law here. All of it's like a web of connections. And to try to really have the reform, you got to really have like a coordinated system to attack all these different webs of connections to start changing it around. Because if you change one thing here, I mean, they already got something else here. It's like chess in a way, like you really can't win for losing in a sense, because you try to hit this. So what? They probably like, so what? We ain't worry about that. We still got this going. What you gonna do? Yeah. That's the way it's set up.
Yeah. I mean, again, like Brian said, we got to attack those systems, and we got to get qualified people to attack them. Like some people not qualified to be in different positions, to be a DA. Let's get the most qualified person, and let's get behind them and make and we get us a coalition, get us a lobbying group, and make them as popular as Jerry Jones or whoever represent us in Congress or the House of Representatives. We got to start become more connected to each other in order to break down these different systems. We already know they're against us, so we got to put our system in play to be able to put our person in position. Okay, this time we're gonna run Kevin for district attorney. The Marcus Hunters, which is a sitting judge. All these black guys has been, that's been sitting judges. Why y'all talking and dealing with each other to put a coalition in place to say, okay, this is who we running next against such and such and such and such. Like they do. They do the same thing. They got a coalition together, and they position the person they think that's more qualified to run for district attorney or to run for the judge seat, in the fifth congressional district or whatever. They do these things, and we don't do them because we not galvanized with each other. We not connected like a web, like you say. We not connected, so we got to get connected to tear down the system. And how we do that is coming together as a unit and making things happen.
Well, to come together as a unit, Marcus, what you just said there, it made me think back when my dad first ran for city council in 1980. And the problem with us, we got to get out of our own way instead of everybody wanting to be. And I can't really say, boy, I cuss too much. I can't really say what I want to say. Let me change it up. Instead of me being the head person in charge, I use that phrase. Yeah. Everybody wants to be the head person in charge. You get the egos out the way, because back then there were different groups that I'm serious, as far as in the black community, that say, okay, this person is going to run for such and such, and they chose. But you had so many of those that were picking, because nobody was even on the same page with that. you'd have to get those kind of things out of the way. And with us, in the sense of, it ain't all about trying to be recognized as this or that. Everybody working together for the whole, right?
Yeah.
And so if we could do that, I believe we could, have some people that's qualified and to go and make some changes. But I mean, in that sense, if we could do that, then yeah, we could make some change. Even, it starts out small. You can't just expect a big old change, just
Black
like
Political
that.
Coalition of Louisiana, Black
Right.
Political Coalition of Louisiana, so we can figure out what needs to be done. I mean, some of us have a knowledge of what needs to be done. Let's tear down that prison system. We shouldn't make up the largest percent of the population in prison. We only make up 32% of the population in Louisiana, but we do. So we got to position ourselves to have a coalition, and that coalition has to be people that has the ability to think. They say, if I can get my people to think, we can change our condition overnight. So that's what we got to do, be able to think positive and correct some of these ills that's been in place since the condition of the Constitution. Since they inputted the Constitution, they've been changing legislation here and there to make adjustments. We got to make the adjustment too.
So shouldn't the first step be education, to teach and get individuals to understand not to break the law, not to break the laws?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would say on that would start as far as might sound crazy saying this too, but my old man was a principal. It impacted a lot of kids' lives growing up, and it's to catch them when they young like that, because he used to always say, and people would be mad at him about it, but he was telling the truth. I found out later on, in the sense of you could see it. If a child can't read or have the basic skills by the time they're in third grade, then he said they won't make it in school going ahead. Because if you can't really understand the basic things as far as comprehending it, then how the hell are you going to read a book and get this other stuff down to be able to understand it? Same thing like with these kind of concepts, what we talked about on y'all show here today. Catching them kids like by the time they're about 10 years old and start teaching them. I was looking at something yesterday on YouTube about the Black Panther Party. And Fred Hampton, got killed in 1969, and with the breakfast program, and he said, we feeding them in the stomach, but we feeding their head at the same time.
Yeah,
you see what I mean? And those little kids. So it's about trying to reach out in that way, and people can do that in their own homes. They try to teach their children some of these things, but it's just the fact. Yeah, education is very important on that, because if you don't know, that's really what we're talking about here today. Yeah. A lot of people, like you say, don't know about the Constitution and all that. If you don't know, you're just going to keep on falling into the same hole or trap.
And a large percentage of the brothers in prison and the sisters in prison is because of lack of education. I mean, barely can read and write, and they ain't going to tell you that. They ain't going to let you know. Because, I come from a group of brothers. We used to hang out on the corner. And a large percent of us dropped out in the 7th and 8th grade and never went back to school. Had I not went to prison and changed my life or said I was going to do something different with my life by educating myself, I got a high school diploma, GED, then further that with a associate degree in business. But a large percentage of my peers don't know they can't read and write. And it's sickening, because I know this because I observe them. I observe those individuals, and I know. And then the lack of the education is the real key to our downfall. And that's why I say we got to get those that's qualified. And some people just got to be soldiers in the field. It is what it is.
Well, one of the things that I saw when I was at the DA's office, I remember Mr. Jones was the DA then, signed the cooperative endeavor agreement with Delta. As far as for to set it up where somebody first time, like if he sent this person, it was almost like a diversion type thing. But instead of, I'm talking about getting out, instead of making him the middleman, but if sending them to where they could go and get a GED, because they have it set up where you could get a Pell Grant for these things. And then, once you get the GED, then go to either learn a trade, you know, with that Votech school through Delta, or go and get your associate's degree, you know, and then work towards getting a bachelor's. I think, to me, that's economic development in that sense. You got the conduit for it right now, as far as with the housing authority has those things set up. They got an agreement with Delta. You got the housing authority office where they got that kind of building set up across from the housing authority office in Robinson Place, and you got that the one right there on Burt Jones Lane, you know. And so there's access to the city bus, you know, where you can catch that. Those are things, you know, like as far as trying to get some of these boys and girls to, because I see more boys that's in trouble in the system, not as many girls.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But to try to steer them towards things like this, to give, you know, even if they're not doing well in school, the system, as far as the school kind of set up now with this testing, if you got a kid that's already behind a little bit with some of the skills, they just gonna get frustrated in school because it's not set up for somebody like them. They're not finna try to help somebody that may be already behind. Got to get another thing set up as far as for kids like that, so they won't just quit and get frustrated with the system and just say, "Oh, the hell with it, I ain't gonna," you know, and just keep going. But those are things, to me, all of that's economic development, because you're trying to put them on track to be able to work, you know, and be able to make a living and take care of themselves. But right now, we ain't set up for it. Yeah. It's really set up to discourage and make them want to quit. And all that's going to do is lead them to OCC. Yeah. I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
You know?
You're exactly right. Yeah. It's you're exactly right, Brother Marcus. The prison pipeline from schoolhouse to the jailhouse. So maybe we need to chat about that next week. And but our time is short. Our time has come to an end. Now, next week, we're going to talk about, Brother Marcus, we're going to talk about HR 6666. Is dealing with contact tracers. It's dealing with that coronavirus. It's dealing with something called trace, testing, reaching, and contact everyone. But Kevin, give us your contact information so that people can reach out to you, and so they can, because you shared so much information, they need someone who's going to fight for their defense. So how can the people reach you?
I have an answer service set up. It's 318-570-5412. 318-570-5412.
All right. Well, that's our time. It's been very in-depth. And like I said, I guess each and every week you'll find myself and Brother Marcus here at the Community Roundtable. We're going to speak about the issues that affect us as we sit down at the roundtable and just discuss what's going on. Well, Brother Marcus, I'll give you the last few words before we cut it out.
Yes, sir, man. I mean, I'm glad that we had this community roundtable today and got a chance to talk to Brother Kevin in reference to all these issues that we've been talking about from the justice system or whatever. But I want to just say, man, vote for Kevin for city councilman, man, because I mean, this is a qualified individual, you know, and we need those that's qualified in order to help us move forward with our issues. And we got to have a campaign, a person that's running for office that's knowledgeable. This brother displayed knowledge today, and I mean, from a array of different perspectives. So we got to put those in place that's qualified and not the populist person. So I mean, hey, it is what it is. I mean, thanks for viewing the community roundtable today. I mean, evaluate all things. EAT every day. Evaluate all things, man. I'm out of here.
All right, we'll talk to everybody else next week.